Hello, Pelle here from PatchXR with another video for you. In this video, I'm going to go over some basic techniques for sequencing. That is, how to make stuff happen at the right time. And before we get started, let's first build something that we can actually sequence. So I'm going to open the Rolodex and let me get an output. Gonna go to math and I will get a multiplier, a MIDI to frequency. Then I'll go to synthesis and get an oscillator. Cool. So I'm gonna let the multiplier control the volume of the oscillator. Actually, we also need a decay. So we're going to let the decay control the volume of the oscillator. And it should go from 1 down to 0 in a short amount of time. Plug it to the input. Great. And this block, the MIDI to frequency knob, is going to take a MIDI note value from 0 to 127 and convert it to a frequency. And that will make it easier for us to control the notes that we are playing in a more musical way. So I can go up in semitones. Cool. So let me grab all of this and we move it over here. Now, one of the very basic blocks for making stuff happen in time is the rhythm block, which you can find here in the time category. And the rhythm block, it's a bit of a complicated block, but what it does is that it will allow you to send out jolts at intervals that is tied to the global tempo of the patch. And the global tempo of the patch is set using the playback controller, which you can open by pressing the button here in the palette. And you see the big knob here that I can use to control the tempo. So if I draw a wire from the output of the rhythm block to the decay, we will hear a rhythm going. I can stop the entire patch and I can start it from the playback controller. And I can control the tempo. On the rhythm block here, you see a few different knobs. The one to the right here is the subdivision knob. So that controls how much the clock is divided before sending out the jolts. So if this is at 2, or it actually multiplies the clock. So if it's at 2, it sends out 8 notes. At 3, it will send out triplets. 4, 16th notes. And 5, we get like quintuplets. The control to the left here controls how many of these subdivisions should go by before a jolt is set out. So now we have, for example, 3 16th notes, and now 2 16th notes and 1 16th note. So if I copy our little synthesizer here and I make another rhythm and I disconnect it, plug it in here, let's get a different note, and let me change the subdivision. We get a cool little polyrhythm going. Very, very nice. And I can, if I want to, plug multiple jolt wires into the same trigger here, so I can play the same rhythm on just one instrument. Cool. So let's move on to the next technique, which is very much related. So we're going to bring our trusty rhythm block. Let's put it to 16th notes again. And this technique is based around the nth block that you will find under logic. Here it is, nth. And what this block does is that it will receive jolts, and every time it have received, for example, 3 jolts, it's going to send a jolt out of its output. So if I plug in here and I get the output from here, it will now send a jolt out every 3/16 or every 4/16. And you can use this to create different kinds of rhythms. You can also reset the count of the nth block. So let's say we want it to reset every 7th. You take the output from here, you connect it down here. This is the reset input. So now we have a 3/4 polyrhythm that gets terminated every 7/16 notes. So you can get some quite fun rhythm out of this simple technique. Very nice. So let me take our machine here and move on to the next sequencing method. We're going to also bring our rhythm block. And now we're going into more like random or generative territory for those of you that are into that kind of thing. And the block we're going to look at is the Bernoulli block. Oh, get out of here. All right, so this block will receive a jolt through the input, and it will send a jolt out of either its right or left output. So let's say I connect the right output to here. Now it's at 0. So now the output always goes right. If I put this up to 0.5, it will go at random, either left or right. So let me just adjust this sound a bit. So now it goes either right or left. I can put it so it will go more to the left. Or more to the right. So using these blocks and maybe using multiple of these, you can using multiple of these, you can make these small generative pieces. Here. Come on. So now it goes either to the one here, or it chooses between one of these here. And you can create small, fun, random compositions with this technique. All right. So next technique is a bit more of a traditional way to sequence, but it also takes a bit more patching. So bear with me. Let's bring our trusty little synthesizer along with us and our rhythm. Alright, so the first block we're going to look at in this category is under interface, and it's called a toggle board. And what the toggle board does, it's just a bunch of toggles. And using these controls up here and the button, you are able to select the state of one of the buttons and send it out of the output here. So let's for now just have two rows actually, and we can select which coulomb gets sent to the output using the knob up here. I think maybe it's easier if I toggle all of these on. Maybe we can see. No, that's actually, well, this one selects which coulomb gets sent to the output, and this button here actually, oh yeah, there you go, sends the output out of here. But to actually use it in a musical manner, we need a helper object, and that is under logic, and it's called cycle counter. And the cycle counter will count from 0 up to some value and then start over again from 0. So here we have it counting from 0 to 8, and we're going to make it select which button or which toggle to output, and we're gonna make it press the button so that the output is actually sent out of here. And you see we have it running here, and I can change the buttons. And now we could try and connect this one to our decay, but we hear that it's going all the time. Why is that? That is because the output here fires no matter if the toggle is on or off, but the value of the jolt coming out of here will be 1 if the toggle is on, or 0 if the toggle is off. So to deal with that, we're going to go to logic, and we're going to use the if else block, and this will, and we're going to make it say, so this checks if the incoming jolt is equal to, let's say, 1. So jolt coming out of here, if it's equal to 1, it will send an output out of here. And now we can program our own rhythms with kind of like a step sequencer kind of interface. And we can have multiple rhythms, and we can change the row we're playing. So if I turn this knob, see I changed the row and it's playing a different rhythm. But let's say we also want to control the note we're playing. We can do that with a very similar interface that is called the knob board. So it looks the same, except it has knobs instead of toggles. Let's just pause this for a moment. Actually, to pause it, I'm gonna press the pause button over here. Much better. So it works exactly the same with the inputs here. You can select which knob's input gets sent to the output. So I'm going to connect it to the same cycle counter over here. And to make it and what I want to do is connect the output of here to the MIDI to frequency block over here, so we can control the note of the oscillator. But to make it a bit easier for myself, I'm going to add a add underscore jolt block, and I'm going to add something like let's say 60, 69, or a 440 hertz. Okay, so let's start this again. It does not seem to be making any sound. Oh, did I change something here by mistake? It's going to come out of here. Oh, I set this to -1. Here we go. All right. Yeah. And this one connects to the frequency inputter. And we can program a little melody. And you can of course also add more rows to to the knob board. Cool. So let's move on to a technique that is kind of related but also kind of different. I don't need this. Let's get our rhythm. So the blocks we're going to look at now is like a family of blocks that you will find in Logic, and these are called the sequence blocks. And we're going to start with the sequence underscore loop block because that is the easiest one to explain and work with. So what this block does is that it receives a jolt here and it will send it to one of its outputs. And you can select how many outputs you want by grabbing this handle here and then pulling it. So let's say we want 8 outputs. So every time it receives a jolt, it is going to move on. It is going to move on to the next output and then start over once it reaches the end. And we can use this to trigger stuff in like a rhythm. And we can of course connect multiple different machines to the same sequence. So you can make small sequences like that. Let's look at the next kind of actually let's just keep this, whatever. Let's look at the next sequence block, which is the let's go to Logic. It's the sequence random, and this is exactly the same deal, but except of sending the outputs out in a loop, it is going to select one of the outputs at random. So you can use this for like making different random algorithmic stuff happen. Alright. And the last one of the sequence blocks is the one called sequence. Again, same thing, except now you need to select which output you want the input to go to. So let's connect this one here, this one here. So now it's at 1, so it sends it to the first output. At 0, sends it to output 0. At 3, it sends it to output 3. And if we get a, and just like we had before, we can get a cycle counter. that will help us select each oh 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 that will help us select which output to send it to. It seems that this one got in a weird state, but don't worry, we can just get an interface and we get a button, and that button will send out a 0, and we can reset the cycle counter. And we need to also have and we made our own little sequencer thing. Alright, alright. Let's go on to the very last technique I have to show you. Going to, for one last time, get our little synthesizer here with the output and also our rhythm block. Alright, so this last way of sequencing stuff is a bit more jazzy, you could say. It's a bit more experimental. And the way it works is that we are going to use the egg timer block. Oh, let's see if I can grab it here. Come on. Here we are. And I will also need a button to start my sequence. What the egg timer block does is that it receives an input through here, and it will wait for this amount of seconds and then send out an output out of here. So if I connect the button here, for example, and I press the button, you see that there is a delay when I press the button before the sound is triggered. And what we can do is that, oh, that was not what I wanted to do, is that we can make a bunch of these in like a loop. Let's see here. Oh, actually we don't need our rhythm block this time. It is going to be very, very jazzy. Right? So now the jolts are going to go round in a loop, and they're going to be delayed every time it hits one of these egg timer blocks. So I need to send in a jolt to start the loop, and I'm going to do that with the button. And every time the jolt goes around, it will trigger our little synthesizer. So let's just gonna copy this so we can get a bit more sound. Let's also have one over here. And what I did there is that I just sent another jolt into the same loop, so you can kind of make these rhythm delay lines kind of things. Let me just get another egg timer. Because you can of course also take one of the links here and use it to oh, need to remember to clear your selection. To trigger another chain. And you hear we can get some quite strange rhythms going in this way. Alright, and to stop it, I guess I just need to break the loop, and the sequence will stop once it has passed through all of the delay lines. Alright, I am going to clean this patch up a bit so that you can play around with it yourself. And one thing I encourage you to do is to try and like figure out how each of these techniques work, and then try and combine them in some way. For example, it could be really fun to combine the Bernoulli block with with like the sequence blocks or the chain timers, or maybe even the toggle and knob boards to get a bit more of like a controlled randomness kind of vibe going. But it all depends what you're into. Anyway, that was it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and good good luck patching. Bye.